Hello and welcome to the Community Voice. I'm Fara Sax. On this episode and next series of 8 episodes or series of beautiful interviews I'm going to be having, we're going to be discussing sales tidbits. That's right, sales tidbits. This is applicable learning. You'll learn about sales performance, management process, overall sales strategies for both your professional and personal development. How are we going to do that? Well, I'm going to introduce you to my colleague, my friend, and trainer, Leo Toledo. Say it, Leo Toledo. Doesn't just flows right off the tongue. He is the founder and CEO of Masterminds Consulting, which is a Sandler training center. He brings a wealth of experience, and he's going to talk about the do's and don'ts, the pitfalls, and helping us along with 18 years experience. And we are so happy, and I welcome you, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for bringing me on board, Farah. I truly appreciate it.
Well, this is the first of 8, so let's discuss, let's start from the beginning. Tell me about yourself.
My background, sure. Native to Miami, born and raised.
Where'd you go to high school?
South Miami.
Woo, woo, woo. I'm a Knight. I'm a Sunset Knight. So
oh, good. Cobras. Go Cobras.
Go Knights.
You know, the one thing about South Miami that in some way I didn't like was the orange and brown color combinations. I don't know, for some reason.
It didn't go with your hair or something, or your eyes?
Yeah, it didn't stand out as much as maybe I would like it to, you know?
Okay.
I didn't have a father growing up. So my mom was a widow right before I was born, actually.
Wow.
You know, so my mom raised us by herself, my brother and I, and it was good. I mean, you know, now I know what it's like to be a parent. I have 2 young boys, and I remember me giving my mom a hard time, especially in my teenage years. And, you know, here we are now. My sons are 4 and 1.
Be careful. Payback can sometimes be, a problem.
You know, it's interesting. Now I know the definition of exhaling. And how often exhaling comes about. So for those of you that are parents, that are running a business and are parents, you know, God bless you, because it's not easy.
It isn't easy. And I remember one time you and I had to meet somewhere, and it was in a parking lot in Target, and you were trying to get your kid to go to sleep, and you were trying to be the father as well as the coach at the same time. So, hats off to you for being able to, especially during this time and where we are, and having to work in the house with the family the past year.
Yeah, it's, my wife and I went on vacation about 2 weeks ago, and it was our first time going us 4 to vacation, and we were thinking it's going to be great. We're going to go and relax. No relaxing whatsoever. It is a blessing. However, they take as much into you as they do out of you.
It's so true. So did you turn the car around in the parking lot and just come right back home?
We had to take turns. I said, honey, you take him for a little bit and I'll go for a walk, and then vice versa. But it's a blessing, though. I mean, there's nothing more that I would like, if I were to go back in time, I would not change anything.
Absolutely not. Yeah. Because it all led you to this moment. And then you went to Miami-Dade for a while too?
For a couple of years, I got my degree in business administration and psychology. I've always liked and enjoyed knowing the psychology behind our human anatomy,
Yes.
How we think, why we think the way we think, how our culture really leads us to think certain ways or have certain biases. So I appreciate it 100%.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so tell me about what you're doing now, and about what you bring to the table, and how you're helping businesses, and what you do.
Yeah, sure. So I own a Sandler franchisee. We are a sales effectiveness and sales coaching company. Typically when I work with organizations, they have a footprint in the marketplace. They have visibility. They've been in business for several years. However, within their current environment that we're in now, maybe their team are not getting in front of enough new opportunities as they would like to. Another challenge that I find is that now with the idea of virtual selling, they're having difficulty transitioning to virtual selling. And of course, if you're not equipped with the technology and the know-how, or if you feel that we're going to be going back to how things used to be, you might be falling behind. And one of the more consistent things that I hear is the team needing to discount because the competition has increased and now I have to discount the services to bring in a new client, to bring in a new customer.
What's your feeling about that discounting? I heard a saying that if I didn't charge you premium, you wouldn't be knowing that what I'm offering is really of value to your company and your organization. I mean, that really is something to think about, of getting paid for what you're worth. And I think as a salesperson, that might be something, I want the business so desperately, but let me discount so that I can get that. How do you address that?
Well, we first have to find out their underlying reasons why they think that, they have to discount the services, because, what we find is that whomever you speak to, whether it be a prospect or a potential buyer, they're always going to say, is that your best price? And if you hear that and you say, okay, well, here's my best price, you think that you're doing a favor to the buyer, but what you're actually doing is you're losing credibility, because on the buyer's standpoint, they're saying, well, if you're able to discount the service, why didn't you offer that number from the very beginning? So you might think that, well, look, because you seem like a nice person and seem like a good customer, let me concede the price. And then all of a sudden now what they actually think about you was, well, you were trying to squeeze them for more money, which gives you the actual opposite effect.
And then also, as a salesperson, what does that do to the salesperson's psyche, knowing that they've already discounted and have to perform whatever task that was put in front of them?
I think it's a domino effect. I mean, I think for every opportunity that you continue going on, what's going to happen is you're going to feel that you have to concede in order for you to bring in the business. And that's not the case. It's not the case at all.
Mm-hmm. Let's go back to, as a business owner, why would we need your services, the Sandler training, and as a business development standpoint, what can you provide for these organizations, which are small, medium, large corporations, one-on-ones, sometimes event-driven, sometimes corporate-driven?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so typically, they have a structure. However, they don't necessarily know the strengths and weaknesses of their existing team. They don't know that if their team has the wherewithal to provide the numbers that the leadership expects of them. They're not the entire team speaks the same common process. Everyone has their own, their own experience. They have their own method of how to sell their services. So because of that, there's a lot of inconsistencies in their quota, in their month-to-month revenues.
So what you're saying, so the expectations are different between management and salespeople? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, correct. And what ends up happening, for example, the end of Q1, let's say you have a team of 10, and then about 5 of them, they did not hit their quota. And that happens regularly. And the business owner can't find out, well, why is it that these people cannot perform up to our expectations? We give them leads, they're qualified leads, they should be able to close them, and they don't. And so that lack of know-how is how Sandler can come in and implement a proven and tested methodology that has been, the pioneer of sales leadership, sales management, and sales process since the late 60s.
So with that process is that you're saying you're coming from the head of the organization down, and how the expectation of what is on the table and what the expectation is for delivery.
Correct.
And have you seen a very big difference now with the pandemic? I hate to say pandemic, but since the past year of what's gone on in organizations, why they might have reached out to you before and what they need now, has there been a very big schism between them?
Yeah, I think now the virtual selling, how to sell virtually, how to really conduct an appropriate Zoom sales call, right? Because there are things that you have to kind of do in advance before you actually get into the call.
Like what?
Well, look, I think first and foremost, you certainly have to have your camera on, right? I mean, all too often you talk to a prospect and their camera is off, and that's not something that.
Can you see me? Can you hear me? Am I on? Am I muted?
Yeah. And I also think that you have to have some knowledge in being able to, share screen and have that flow happen swiftly. Because if you kind of get interrupted and you're like, oh, well, excuse me, wait a second, and there's like a pause there, I think that you lose credibility, because from the prospective side, they're thinking, well, you should already be able to handle this, considering that we've already been, in somewhat lockdown or in somewhat working remote for over 14 months.
Do you think we still have, they say that you can only make a good impression in 30 seconds. Do you think we have that 30 seconds anymore, or is it even less? I mean, because I think our patience level, our attention span has really diminished, especially I think in the last several year and a half now.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I personally see that, for example, if you haven't invested in maybe a better camera, if you haven't invested in a better microphone, and you're trying to sell your services to a lucrative opportunity, and you don't really have either a backdrop or any type of technology, any type of equipment that at least shows this prospective opportunity that you do care of what our new normal looks like, and you are aware that this is going to be our new path going forward, then they're immediately going to say, I don't want to deal with this individual because they don't even have the basics set up that at least gives them the visibility that they care about their image, they care about how they're going to be perceived. Because as you mentioned, we really only have 10, 15 seconds to make a positive impression. And then if the positive impression does not happen immediately, then you'll be fighting for that throughout the entire sales call, and chances are you're behind the 8 ball.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Why does a sales professional or an account executive will benefit from the Sandler training with you?
Yeah,
because I know you're dealing with the sales, and then you're dealing with a middle manager. You can deal with an organization entirely. Right. You can deal with just the manager. You can do so. What's the benefit?
Look, the frontline salespeople, their biggest challenge is that they find themselves chasing. They get in front of an opportunity, they do a good job presenting, but then they can't close, or they receive some variation of, this looks good, let me get back to you. Or this looks good, give us a call in a week. So the salesperson is in a constant chase mode. They're constantly chasing to get a decision made. Another issue that I find with salespeople is that it could be a confidence thing, and it could also be a technical thing where they don't know how to prospect. They don't know how to prospect effectively. And if finally they get in front of an opportunity, their 30-second commercial does not capture the attention of the person that they're talking to.
Of which we will talk about a 30-second commercial in as the series unfolds
Absolutely.
Together. Yeah, that is very interesting. And also sometimes you get in front of someone and you think, yes, I'm in front of someone. It's the wrong person. It's not the buyer.
Correct.
It's not the decision maker. And we put all this energy, and like you're saying, we're chasing our tail, we're chasing our tail, we're chasing our tail. So some of the tips how do you figure that out when you don't know going in?
Well, you have to.
He takes a big sigh, because never happened to him, right? Never happened, Leo, right?
Look, coming from a sales trainer, I mean, you can imagine what we go through, because if you think about it, when we're in front of an opportunity, they're looking at you saying, okay, when is he going to make that move, or what is he going to say to me? So their attention on us, or looking at us with clearer eyes than as if you were a regular salesperson. So you could imagine on the amount of roadblocks that we go through being in that space. The one thing I can say about salespeople is that in order for you to determine if you're talking to the right person is typically use a third-party reference or a third-party successful example on how you sell your services.
Can you play that with me? Let's just.
Yeah. So then I would say something like, typically when in a scenario like this, Farah, the way we've been successfully working with opportunities have been that we talk with the manager and the senior staff, maybe even HR. I don't know your world. How do you normally work through that? And so typically what I did there is that I used a third-party example as how we've been successful with them, and I bring it to the present. And I say, well, how do you compare to this successful engagement that we had?
So basically what you're doing is you're taking the pressure off of them.
Right. Well, of course, because,
and saying, I don't know if it's really happened to you. I'm not sure, but.
Right. And at the same time, I'm not asking you directly. You see, I'm not saying, so walk me through, Farah, who is your decision maker, right? If I ask you that, you can sometimes be, well, that was a little invasive, or a little forward. However, if I ask you, how do you compare to this past experience that I've had? Now you can tell me, well, that's not the way that we do it. We do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're fact finding, and you're finding out more information that can help speed the process up a little bit further.
Correct.
Mm.
Yeah, correct.
What the biggest pitfall, I think, is the way I was taught to sell, because I think we're all selling something. We're selling our services, we're selling our products, we're selling ourselves, maybe all of them at the same time in a particular encounter. But what sales techniques that over the years you found do not work, and why?
Yeah,
I think you have a whole litany of a list.
We have a lot. Yeah,
you can write a book just on that. What not to do during a sales call?
Well, here's a Sandler rule that we use often, and it is don't spill your candy in the lobby. Right.
Well, it's my benefit then. I get to eat all of it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Well, what does that mean?
So what that means is, like, for example, if someone asks you, so tell me, Leo, how can you help my company? Now I'm spilling my candy. Well, we can help you with this. We can help you with this. And then all of a sudden now I'm selling all the features and all the benefits that they will derive if they hire me.
And what's the problem with that?
Well, the problem is that if you say those things, you are assuming that it's important to them. You are assuming that they're going to be attracted to what you're saying. And that's not the case. So when someone says to you, well, tell me, how can your company help me? Well, I'm glad you asked me that question. I guess before I share that with you, walk me through, what are you interested in? Mm-hmm. And then why are you interested in that? What has been your experience behind that? What are you hoping my company can do for you? And if my company can do that for you, what happens after?
Right. So you have to play detective before you actually give them the information.
Of course, because you don't know, right? It's, one of the things that I say is that salespeople should never justify, should never explain, and should never defend their position or their reasoning. What they have to do is they just have to figure out, well, they asked me that question for a reason. Why did they ask me that question? So in the back of their minds, as a business owner or even as a sales rep, when someone asks you something, well, why is your company better? Okay, they're asking me that because either they heard something about us or they just want to see how I can answer it. However, there's a reason behind that question. And I have to be skilled enough to know, where is that question coming from?
Right. Good point. And what are some of the other pitfalls that we jump into as salespeople, marketers?
Not getting excited. I think.
What do you mean? We shouldn't get excited? We shouldn't get, I got the sale, or I'm about to get the sale?
Being enthusiastic and being more happy or being happier than them is not a good thing.
Why not?
Because in some way it breeds doubt. It's like, well, they got really excited about that. I wonder, why are they getting that way? And it's
so you have to take like a chill pill before, like,
you have to relax. You
really?
You have to see the opportunities when you're in front of them as having them convince you it is worthy for them to be a customer. So you have to kind of look at the sales call in some way, thinking about it that they are not qualified until they give me enough reason for them to be qualified. And the reasons that they give me are based off of the answers from the questions that I ask them.
Interesting.
Does that make sense? Or
yeah, it does. So you want that commitment. You're looking for a commitment from them, making sure that you've answered their questions, that you're on the same playing field with them.
Correct.
Is that what I can assume?
Yeah. Before I can share with you how I can be of value to you, what is it that you're looking for, and why are you looking for that? Why is it that you called our company as opposed to someone else? Or if you did call someone else, well, then why did you also call our company? Mm-hmm. What is the criteria for you as a business owner that is looking at us to resolve for you? What does that look like? What does that roadmap look like? And then why is that your roadmap?
Interesting. And what other tips can you give your audience for today on our first series?
The next thing that I would probably bring up is always knowing specifically what the outcome of the meeting is going to look like. And something like that can sound like, before we begin our meeting today, Farah, just from my own frame of reference, what are you hoping we accomplish today in our meeting? What is going to be a total win as an outcome for you? Can you share that with me?
Do you find that sometimes there's a resistance for this conversation? Are people willing to be this honest?
Well,
This honest, not dishonest, this honest.
yeah, there's a couple of dancing that goes around. I mean, of
Mhm.
course, because if like, look, if I ask you, give me some words that describe salesperson, it's unfortunate that it's not favorable, right? And so we have to, in some way, we have to make them aware that, listen, we're just having a conversation today. I'm not going to sell you anything. I don't know that if what I have to offer is even what you're looking for. So before we start talking about solutions, let us first talk about why we're even meeting to begin with.
So this is what you call the upfront contract.
Right, right. And so the upfront contract really allows me to understand, okay, what is the purpose of our meeting today?
Mhm.
What is the agenda that you want to accomplish in this meeting today? And equally, I have an agenda that I'd like to share with you. Are you comfortable if I share that agenda with you? And then after that, here are the possible outcomes that we can have throughout this call today. And that's extremely important because lots of times salespeople and even business leaders don't know that they themselves should have an agenda walking into a meeting, right? And so when you ask yourself, what should my agenda be, or what should my agenda?
So this also helps shorten the sales cycle response or feedback or resolution towards the end of what you're hoping to gain.
Yes, and I think it reveals the truth, right? It reveals exactly what the expectation is. Because if I tell you, Farah, here's what I'm hoping we accomplish in today's meeting, are you comfortable with that? Right before we begin, I'm already asking you, are you comfortable with the way the format of this conversation is going to go? Because if you say no to me, I'm going to say, okay, well, how come? And now all of a sudden, I'm already addressing resistance within the first 2 minutes of the conversation, as opposed to going through the resistance after I've provided you samples, I've provided you the services, I provided you the investment amount, and then now I basically lost all my leverage as a sales professional.
And what you want to do is try to keep control during the sales call.
Right. And then ask the person that you're in front of, are you comfortable with the way that we normally work with successful clients like you, or maybe like you?
Mm-hmm.
And when you get that buy-in, when you get that agreement at the very beginning, it really equals the playing field. And it just allows you to have an adult to adult conversation on discovering whether or not it's going to make sense for us to engage further or not engage further.
Absolutely.
And either way you decide as a prospect, I'm totally comfortable with.
It makes probably the prospect want it more. It's like you're offering some candy, but you're not spilling the whole thing. You're giving them something, but you're keeping in control, which I think is really, really important, is because we go on sales calls, we get so excited, but we didn't uncover what the problems were, what they needed. We're so into talking about what I offer, what I can do for you, and
Correct.
how I can help you. Blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? By the end.
Right. As opposed to saying, look, I don't know if I can be a resource for you. I don't know if I'm the right company for you. I don't even know if my investment amount, which will be higher, is going to be satisfactory to you. So I guess before we begin, assuming that we are more expensive, what happens? And now all of a sudden, I brought up a past issue about money, and I brought it up on the table even before we begin the conversation, because it allows me to know. And in addition to that, it allows me to bring up my biggest fears as a sales professional at the very beginning of the conversation. And then once I bring up those biggest fears, what is he or what is she going to say? And let's have a conversation around that premise to see what ends up happening and to see what unfolds throughout the conversation.
Wonderful. And we have only a couple minutes left, because I think we could stay here probably all day and just talk. How is Masterminds different than other consulting or business strategy companies in the area or nationally?
Yeah, it's a great question. For me personally, I always look at my relationships, long term, 3-year, 2-year engagements. However, the biggest difference is that we run our practice like a a professional organization or like a sports organization type atmosphere, right? Where the athletes come every week to practice, and every single week they come into our forum, if you will, and it's on a consistent cadence. And that's the biggest differentiator, because it's not necessarily as a project where I come in, we talk about the strategy, and then I leave. It's more an overview on the strategy, but then now we practice every single week on everything that's out in the field.
So you're basically with holding hand and then going out we go into the real world, and we come back with some experience and hopefully some productivity and maybe some challenges that we had on the field. We talk about it, and then we go back and learn another portion of the training.
Correct.
Is that what happens?
Correct. Yeah. It's all about lessons learned. We have either, okay, what victory did you experience last week? Let's discuss that. What problem did you experience last week? Let's discuss that. So it's a very interactive, very open type of format where it's a gradual learning process throughout the months, throughout the years.
So it's on the job training, literally.
Right.
So Leo, if someone wants to get in touch with you, on your LinkedIn, there's Attitude Friday, and you just give your sales tidbits. I mean, they are just gems. So they can reach you on LinkedIn. Also, is there a website that they can interface with you?
Yeah, they can. The website, they can go to see our content and to see what we do. That's masterminds.com or masterminds.sandler.com, or they can check out my Instagram at Sales Tidbits, or my Facebook at Sales Tidbits as well.
This has been uplifting, eye-opening, and I'm looking forward to the next 7 series together with you for
Wonderful.
Sales Tidbits. And I'd like to thank today our sponsor, H. Gregg in Kendall, for being a wonderful sponsor. And join us next time on the Community Voice. I'm Fara Sax. Have a great one. Leo.
Bye. Thanks.